only a few teams in the league each year that can go out there and you can sit there and say, all right, they think they're going to win this game. They probably have the talent to do so. We were one of those teams.
That season, I would say, is the best Hornets single season ever.
And a lot of people look, they look at history of Hornets basketball and they say, a 92-93 team with Alonzo and Larry, that was the best team that ever played.
The best season in NBA history in Charlotte did not come when Larry and Zoe were here. It came with a team that was built around Glen Rice that won 54 games.
Larry Johnson's gone, and his place is Anthony Mason. Alonzo Mourning's gone. The draft pick that turned out to be Kobe Bryant was traded for Vlade Divac. Glen Rice had come in the Alonzo Mourning trade, so there was a lot of uncertainty on how these parts would fit together.
We were still a competitive team. They were good players, Mason and Vlade. We knew all about them, good players, but we're a different team. You take Zoe out of the mix, nothing against the other guys coming in, but it's a totally different team. So we just had to retool, rework, and try to figure it out.
When you have a group of guys that are willing to work together, you always find a way to work it out.
They had put together a really good group of veterans who were not at the end of their career, but kind of coming down from the peak of their career, if you will, but not at the end of their career. They still had great talent, and you mix that in with some young players as well, and it just seemed to work.
Well, it was, I think, key for the team that had a very successful season. Coming, from Lakers in New York, and having, great players like Glen Rice and Del Curry and MUGGSY Bogues. It was a fun team to play for.
Well, we knew that right away. As soon as everyone got familiar with the type of game that they brought to the table. And it was very well put together because, the guys that we had were very unselfish players. Anytime you have unselfish players like we had, your rate of success is going to be a little higher.
And we were smart. That was one of the highest IQ teams that I've been on. Everybody kind of knew how to play the game, trusted each other. Nobody wanted to, stand out from the group, and that's big.
We went out and we worked to compete and to be better as a one unit. And anytime you got guys that are on the same page like we were at that time, it makes it fun, and at the same time you have a lot less headaches.
They were unselfish. Players knew where to go. They knew how to look for each other. They knew how to find each other. And there weren't any clicks or, okay, this guy's getting the ball, this guy, I know this guy. They were selfless. They moved that ball around. They had some good individual talent, but the whole was greater than the individual talent. It just worked. You'd watch it game after game, and week after week, and think, man, these guys have something, and they did.
One of the things that's interesting about that period of time was when Kobe Bryant came into the league.
Nobody knew who Kobe Bryant was. And that deal, God, this is such an urban myth in Charlotte. That deal was made before the draft.
We had our eyes on a particular player as a pivot player from Eastern Europe. And we thought that he would be ideal for us. We were picking 13th. But everybody knew, and in particular Bob Bass was stuck by the point that, doggone it, the Cleveland Cavaliers were picking 12th, like him too. Sure enough, Potapenko goes to Cleveland. Jerry West calls Bob Bass, says, you're on the clock. Take Kobe, we'll trade you Vlade Divac. And that's what Bob Bass did.
The Charlotte Hornets select Kobe Bryant from Lower Merion High School in Pennsylvania.
And Kobe walked to the podium, smiling ear to ear, puts the Hornets hat on. He's all set because he knows what's going to happen. He's going to be dealt to Los Angeles. And with the Lakers, it's showtime.
When Kobe blossomed, it was like, why'd you do that idiotic thing? The thing was done before the draft. And I'm not sure, aside from the Lakers, who else knew about Kobe, because look how long he lasted.
That's what transformed the franchise. Because Vlade Divac, yeah, Kobe Bryant would have been huge for us. But why waste a pick?
Ernie, sources have told me that the Charlotte Hornets have traded Kobe Bryant to the Lakers. The best confirmation that I could get out of the Lakers was that we're very interested in Kobe, but we have not made a deal yet. We might see this be a small deal for maybe Anthony Peeler, or it could escalate into something big involving Vlade Divac.
Get somebody who's going to be part of your lineup. And Vlade Divac became a key part to our lineup. You know, and he was a tremendous man, and he made others around him better. He made our franchise better too.
Well, I have to admit, even I know people over there knew I wasn't happy, you know, when they made the trade, you know, because I didn't want to leave Los Angeles. But when I went there and spent some time with Charlotte, I fell in love with the city.
Vlade is the best teammate I have ever been around as far as NBA players. I'm honestly convinced that you could have plugged him into any situation and he would have made it better.
With the addition of Vlade and Anthony Mason, I mean, Vlade at that particular time we considered to be one of the premier passing big men, and he had a winning track record.
Well, we play as a team. You know, we had good shooters. We had you know, two very talented big men. Obviously, MUGGSY was very talented. You know, a point guard. We had some other players there to help us. You know. Achieve our goals, but you know, coaching staff with Dave Collins and Paul Silas, you know, kept us together, and we were ready to go.
It was an interesting season to cover because I think there was an element within the fan base of what's next with Alan Bristow being gone.
Dave had a different style than Alan Bristow. Alan was kind of more of an instinctive coach. Dave Cowens took over. Now you got to remember, he came from the Spurs machine. So Dave was very detail-oriented. The regimen that the team went through was like night and day.
Felt good about the coach, you know, Dave Cowens and, you know, Paul Silas and that crew. I mean, they made us feel comfortable. They made us feel like that we were very important, and at the same time, when we did make mistakes, they got on us.
Dave was that feisty, you know, guy. He coached really like he played, full of energy and gut and grit.
Dave Cowens came in there with an attitude of, you know, going at other teams with the no-quit attitude. Very free with the players. You know, he kind of like let the players go out there and do what they do best.
That was a good match of personality between players and coach. And he knew he had a lot of talent, and he kept those guys in line. He managed the personalities, but he also gave those guys a lot of respect to be responsible for their own outcome.
Anthony Mason and Vlade Divac are an awful lot of things, but selfish is not one of them as players. They want the ball to make good things happen for their opponents, but they love passing out of the double team. So if you're passing out to Del Curry and Glen Rice out of a double team, the odds are pretty good for you that shots are going to be made and the team would roll.
Pretty much that whole year I felt like I was in the zone. I felt like I could do no wrong.
Look at that. Look at that. What a great shooter.
Mason was a New York kid. He was very unhappy and hurt. His feelings were hurt to be traded away from his hometown team to anywhere else in the NBA. It's nothing to do with Charlotte, it just he's no longer a Knick. So he was motivated to show, hey, they made a mistake, trading me away.
And Anthony Mason was a double-double machine. You know, it never was that way in New York. Barely a starter. But here, he was a starter, double-double.
Well, Anthony was a very tough guy, you know, and one of the best power forward in those couple of years in the league. So we complement each other very well, you know. We knew how to pass the ball to our shooters. Del Curry and Glen Rice were probably the two best shooters in the league. So it was fun playing with him.
I watched Mason when he was, you know, in New York. The physicality that he brought to the game definitely helped the Hornets at that time. And here again, you had another big man who was extremely good in passing the basketball and also scoring as well. And for a big guy, a tremendous defensive player.
Vlade originally said he wasn't coming to Charlotte. He was motivated to show, hey, you know, the Lakers made a mistake letting me go. I can thrive elsewhere. And I think, you know, all four of those guys who were the central figures in that 96-97 team had something to prove to the NBA and maybe to themselves.
That first half of the season, you know, I was playing on one leg, but I was still able to run the team. You know, Glenn was having his best season then. You know, he was having, they was kind of had him in the same breath of a Michael Jordan type of season that year. You know, and then second half, I got my strength back.
MUGGSY with a beautiful spin to set it up for Devos. MUGGSY, boom.
The East was tough, and it was a slower, everybody says it was a slower, more physical pace type of game than the West Coast up and down.
It was a very physical league when you had the Heat and the Knicks, who was considered, and the Chicago Bulls, who was considered top teams, and not only just top teams offensively, but you know, each team went out there and displayed their defense very well, and the physicality that the Knicks and the Heat came in with, it was proven to be a nuisance at times, but at the same time, it just continued to keep propelling you to trying to get better and better. So Eastern Conference was tough then.
It was tough. Again, 54 wins, and we were 6th seed. That would never happen today.
Say, whoa, that should be a 3rd, 4th seed, but back in our era, it was a 6th seed.
There was a lot of competitiveness around the league, a lot of parity, and it told you whenever you had a game, you had to come ready to play. There were no exact nights off.
It was tough, you know. You're having, you know, Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, and then you had New York with Patrick Ewing. You know, it's right there. You know, the competition level was very high. You know, it was very tough for us to kind of make success in the playoffs, but we did a good job, you know, in the regular season.
This team is definitely not going to give up. I guarantee you that.
We really felt that we could beat the Knicks. You know, I think with Mason and Vlade, we felt like that. You know, if not 100%, at least 75% of the time, we could match them with the physicality. Offensively, we felt we had an edge on them, but at the same time, I think once we got in there, their experience prevailed over us, and it was a learning lesson for us.
Went up against a team that had a little more veteran, well, I guess a little more understanding how to win in playoff time. And, you know, for us, we certainly had New York number that year, 3 out of 4 games. But unfortunately, you know, they was able to prevail during that playoff season.
Arguably, one of the best teams the Hornets have ever put together. That team, a lot of people thought at some point, had they continued to move forward without some of the tragedy that happened, that team was the one team that people thought this team could eventually make it to the NBA Finals. They were that good. It's sad to have not seen that mature and see what that could have been.
I think Charlotte helped me personally extend my career. That's why I probably played, you know, for 17 years in the league. That 2 years in Charlotte kind of gave me a boost, you know, and new challenges in my life, so it was fun.
Win-wise, yeah, definitely 54 wins. It had to be the best team win-wise, but that year was definitely one of the best.